Welcome back to my workshop. Well, actually, you're in my garden today. Now, you may remember 2 years ago, I built this thing, okay, which is basically a log shed, which I made entirely out of pallets. But now I've got to do some improvements. Now, the first improvement is I've got to change the roof. Now, it's fouled in a way that I didn't expect, but it's not surprising, really. Let me show you how it's fouled. Right, you may remember that I made all of this roof out of a pallet. It was a massive pallet and it was all live edge wood. But what's happened here is it's ended up splitting. You can see along here, split there's a split there, massive split here. So this stuff is no good for the roof, okay? And also it's distorted a bit, if you might be able to see up here. And I did seal it and it was waterproof, but because it's all moving and it's all split, it's now no good. So what I'm going to have to do is rip all of that lot off, but because there's nothing underneath it apart from some battens, what I'm going to have to do is replace the entire roof with some of this, which is OSB, which I had left over from when I built this shed. Okay, and then my intention is I'm going to replace all of the wood with these things. Now these are Tapco tiles. We'll have a quick look at those in a moment. But the first thing I've got to do is start getting something done. I've got to get all the guttering off, all the pipe work off, all the ends off, and then rip all this off. So I'll get on with that first so we see what we've got to work with. Right, so that's all the timber off the top here. You can see where I've done a temporary repair here from inside. I've just brought this breathable membrane on just to divert the water. It wasn't going to make it waterproof, it was going to divert the water, because obviously in here is where all our wood was supposed to be kept dry for the fire. So now I've just got to take this membrane off. Right, you can see now that membrane's off, you can see these bits of wood, there's all bits of foam. Obviously that's where I used the expanding foam to try and waterproof it when I first built it. Now what I've got to do is all of these battens here, they've got little nails in it, obviously where I used the nail gun. I need to reuse those. So what I want to do is get rid of all this expanding foam stuff, pull out all the nails, because that's a bit boring, but it's got to be done. Right, so even though I built this thing 2 years ago now, almost to the day, I've just realised I've got exactly the same t-shirt on 2 years later. Anyway, right, putting the roof on now, I'm going to use this OSB, which I've got left over, but annoyingly, it's 18 inches wide, but the gap across here is not going to work. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is move some of these battens. It shouldn't be too difficult, but it means you've got to move the one across the back as well. Move these across, so when these go up, okay, they actually land on these battens. So let's start moving some bits of wood around. Right, to make sure I get the first batten in the right place, I'm going to measure the 18 inches from this edge here across to the centre of this batten here. And to ensure that I get the overhang exactly the same, I haven't moved this batten yet, or this one. So I'm just going to put a piece of straight wood across the bottom, bring that down, make sure that's square, make sure it's the same distance at the front as it is at the back, and then screw it back in. Right, as you can see, I've started moving around the battens here. I've got these 3 fixed in place, actually these 4 fixed in place, these 2 on the end. But what I've got to do is I've ended up with an awkward gap in the middle. Because I've only got 5 pieces of this OSB, which is here, okay, I've only got 5 pieces of those big enough. So what I'm going to have to do is, I've got an extra batten here, an extra bit of a pallet. I'm going to put that up here, so we're going to end up with an odd number of battens, and they're going to be spaced uneven, which is really playing up my OCD, but that's what we're going to have to do. So a new batten in there, and then I can get a bit creative with the remainder of the OSB. Right, before I put the odd batten in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all the pieces of OSB, this stuff here. I'm going to cut them all to the right length. It's going to be easier to do it before I put them up on the roof. So I'm going to cut those 5 pieces, then get those in place, and then figure out the odd batten. Okay, right, so let's do some cutting. Right, so I finally managed to find enough pieces of wood to cover this. None of it's square, but it's actually square. The building's square, but the pieces of wood are not quite square. It doesn't matter. Right, what I'm going to do now is cover it in this breathable membrane. It's just the same stuff I used on the woodshed. I'm just going to literally lay this over, cut it to size, and then staple it in position with a Stanley stapler. So let's get up there and do that. Why is it that whenever you're trying to do anything like this, there's been no breeze at all day, and then I put that up there, suddenly there's a breeze? I don't get it. Right, so I've got all my breathable membrane on now. I better start putting some tiles on before it starts getting dark. Now obviously these are the tiles I'm going to be using, and they are Tapco tiles. You can see here I've put on one of the hangers, this is for the guttering, just to get an idea of how much these need to overhang. Now what I have to do first is do 3/4 of the length of one of these as a first course. That's called an eaves course or something, and I just need to know how far that can hang over so it actually goes into the guttering. It'll all become apparent later on. But before we do any of that, let's have a look at these tiles and see what they're all about. Right, so we're in the workshop now because I think the light is a bit better. Oh, not exactly the best background because I've got the same colour background, but these are composite slates. Okay, so they're made of some sort of, I think they're actually recycled material, but they've got a slate effect here. They're very lightweight and they appear to have a bit of a curvature to them. Okay, here. But I think that's intentional, so when you actually fit them to the roof, it pulls it down onto the roof, which stops this end catching the wind. Okay, on it you've got various markings here. Okay, these ones here, on the here and here, are the overhang. So when you've got your second tile going on, okay, you use those marks, you line them up with the top of the thingy, and it shows you the overhang. Okay, let's get you in shot here. Yeah, so if we line up our 6-inch there, okay, we get a 6-inch overhang here. Okay, apparently you can cut these with a Stanley knife and then snap them off, which I'm going to try in a second. But the first course I do of these, I have to do I think it's a 12-inch, and I've got to cut it off, and then that comes on as an eaves course. Okay, so that goes, if you imagine this was my roof, the first course goes up to the end like so, and then the second course goes like that. Okay, so then that way you don't get this gap appearing so water can't get in. If you look on the sides of these, okay, there's a little knob in there. I don't know what you want to call it. There's one there, there's another one on this side. Don't cut those off because they're intentionally there to help you space out the tiles. Okay, so you've got one here and one there. So when you push them together, okay, it gives you a regular size gap. Okay, so let's try and cut one of these down. I'm just going to use the Stanley knife and then try and cut it off. Nice. Right, so these are easy enough to cut with a Stanley knife. Just score it 4 or 5 times, fold it over, and it breaks off. Right, so this is one of my whatever they called it, eave tile. I've got to do enough of these to cover the length of the shed. Put those on, and then basically there's 2 screws. Okay, these little divots here are where the screws go. But the first layer, so the eave layer, you've got to drop it down by about 1.5 inches or something like that, about 1 inch. So when you put the next layer on, you go through there and you're not going to hit your original screw or nail. These can be put on with nails or with screws. I'm going to put screws on so then I can take them off again because I'm like that. Okay, right, I'll cut some more of these and then we'll start putting some tiles on the roof. Right, so I've got my eaves course on here now, and even after me telling you not 2 minutes ago, don't put these screws in here, put them down here, I still put them in here. What an idiot. But what I've got to do is obviously these next ones have got to overlap. Okay, so your gap's in the middle, these have got to be halfway. If you look on the end here, there's actually a little divot which shows you the halfway mark. I've dropped that one. Now if that was a slate tile, it would have broke. Right, so what I've got to do is line up this with my centre line, line up this with the base. And what I'm going to do for this course is I'm going to put the screws just a little bit above here, so then they don't hit these ones. Right, okay, right, let's do that then. Right, hopefully you can hear me because I don't have a microphone at the moment. Right, I've reached the top here. Now, obviously I haven't got any kind of capping trim at the moment. So what I want to try and do is something a bit strange. Right, let's get in the workshop and do some experiments. On the roof, we've got our final tile comes up. Normally you would have some sort of capping that goes over the top or a bit of trim. Now I haven't got any of that, I've only got the tiles. So what I'm going to try and do is put a final tile on it, as I would do normally. But what I want to try and do is bend this. Now this is obviously a composite material. So I'm thinking, what if I heat it up and then bend it, and then that will give me a water runoff on the back and it will trim it off nice. And then I'll have to put a couple of screws in and maybe paint them so they don't stand out. So let's try it, clamp this to the bench, get some hot air on it and see if I can bend it in a straight line. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll bend it at the 7.5 inch mark, which is here. So what I want to do is line those 7.5 inch marks up on the edge of the bench here. I've got this ye old faithful spirit level just to act as a straight edge. I'm going to clamp that onto the bench. This could all go horribly wrong. Okay, so that should give me my straight edge. Clamp, clamp. Right, I'm going to try and heat this up using just an all hot air gun and try and bend it. Right, so there's my full tile bent into shape. Hopefully it's going to work. And the idea is it just slips over like that. That looks like it's going to work. let me just get up on the roof, and that gives me an overhang at the back that rain can run off of. Okay, right, so let me do that to all the other tiles, but maybe I'll fit them tomorrow. Right, so I've now bent all of these. That went better than expected. They all look fairly symmetrical. And I've also drilled a couple of little pilot holes, which you can't see. There we go, one there and one there. Because obviously I can't put them here because that'll be over the top. But anyway, right, let's go and put these on the roof. Right, so I've now got the final ridge on the back there. I've also put the side rails on and a little bit of trim. I've used this sort of stuff. It's just like angled plastic, and I've put some silicone on it. That should waterproof it quite a bit. I don't know if you can see it that way. I think the silicone might have been a bit overkill, but it'll do. It's got to keep the wood dry. I'll put the side panels on here. Okay, next thing to do is to whip on the guttering. Right, got the guttering back on now. It's a little bit twisted. I think it's been treated by the sun and it's gone a bit twisty, so I might replace that at some point. All I've got to do now is get rid of this pile of wood. I think I'll chop that up and put it in there so we can use it next winter. Right, let me have a quick tidy up and I think we're nearly there. Right, well that's just about it. It's all done now. New roof, obviously, with some reclaimed OSB that I had from the shed build, a bit of membrane, and then changed all of these, okay, which obviously the wood that was on it before completely destroyed itself. But these Tapco slates, apparently I said earlier on that they're made from recycled material. That's not true, but they are made from recyclable material. Okay, but yeah, I'm very impressed with these. Easy to cut, nice and lightweight. They look excellent. Right, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Okay, and to make sure I get them with the same overhang, what I'm going to do is wherever I put it, where did I put it? Where the hell did I put that? Here it is.